Now, being able to come into the great outdoors with your dog is the dream of most people, and being able to give them off-lead freedom whilst you do so adds to that dream. The problem is most people with their dogs don't have complete off-lead control of their dogs, which means if you do let them off in a public place, you're setting you and them up for huge amounts of failure. And in this video, we're going to look at the biggest mistakes people make when it comes to not having perfect recall. So the first biggest mistake that people make when it comes to recall is not playing the you equal awesome game. Now, this is my mate Ruby. She's here at my sanctuary. She's been stuck in a rescue centre for a long time, but we're going to do our best to get her forever home and help her become a perfect canine companion. One of the things that we need to work on with her is you equal awesome. The problem is with rescue dogs, they don't really have engagement with people. They've never really learnt that people equal awesome. By the end of her month stay with me here at my sanctuary, I would like to get her to the point where I can't really go anywhere without her wanting to come and check in with me, because she's learnt over this process that I equal awesome. And right now the reality is that to her I don't. But what I need her to do is to have that ability to be able to kind of come in, check in with me naturally of her own accord. And what I'm going to get hopefully from her now is a really good rep. She's coming to check in, I'm just moving my feet back, just draws her in a little bit, which really helps communicate that concept of check in with me, a good thing's going to happen. I equal awesome. Being in my personal space will always result in something awesome. Doing this all the time from day one is a mandatory part of having a dog that has reliable recall, is that this circle around me is a really positive space for any dog to be in. And if they stay in that space, good things are going to happen. Now, where this is a mistake for people that don't do this is that a lot of people just ignore their dog when they come in. They take it for granted and they don't give the dog a reason to think that this is an amazing thing. Then the recall starts to get bad. The dog ignores the recall. You get frustrated, and when you do go to the dog, finally get the dog back, you've got loads of energy that you're frustrated with the dog. The dog picks up on that. You put the lead back on them, so you've removed their freedom, and then you might take them away from the really fun place that they're in. That doesn't facilitate a dog that wants to naturally come back. So just make sure that to your dog, just being around you is an awesome thing. That's the foundation. Then we build perfect recall on top of that. Doesn't matter what fancy recall training or tips that you do, if being around you is a negative experience, you're never going to win. If being around you is always a positive experience, it's going to make the process way easier. Another huge mistake that people make when it comes to recall is a really simple one that people shouldn't make, yet they do it time and time again, and that's giving your dog way too much freedom way too soon. With certain behaviors like teaching your dog to sit, it is something that you can teach very quickly and be very reliable very quickly, and you can use it very quickly. Recall isn't that. You need to make sure you're setting your dog up for success. One of the quickest ways that you can set your dog up for failure when it comes to recall is just giving them too much freedom way too soon. So keep your rules, boundaries and expectations tight. Set them up for success. Don't let them off lead in places and scenarios where you know you don't have complete control and you're rolling the dice as to whether you'll be able to get them to comply or not. And embrace that recall isn't something that takes a day. It's not something that takes a week. It's rarely something that takes a month or even a few months. Oftentimes, it's stuff that works on over years. And it's when your dog gets out of the puppy phase and out of the teenage phase that then that reliability really starts to bake in long term. And if you've got a dog, especially from a puppy, hopefully you're going to have that dog for 10, 12 more years. So to take your time with those first few years to then give yourself perfect freedom long term is well worth it. The next mistake that I think is really common is a really simple one, and it can be avoided so easily. It's just about not using a long line. Using a long line for your dog's recall, especially while they're going through the training process, is so easy. You have to avoid situations where your dog's ignoring you. If you ask your dog to do something, they must do it. So you have two choices. You either don't ask it if you can't enforce it, or you make sure that if you do ask it, it's always enforceable. Many behaviors where the dog is on a lead by your side, if they ignore it, you can use your lead to help make sure if I ask you to sit, you must sit. When it comes to recall, if you ask your dog to come back to you and they don't, If you don't have a long line on your dog, you can't guarantee it. However, right now, if I was to ask for recall, which I'm not going to do because this is literally his very, very first session with me, and he didn't listen, I've got the long line and I can reel him in like this and I can guarantee success. Using the long line means that I haven't just had a failed rep, I had a successful rep, and it gave me the opportunity to go, okay, cool. I thought he was gonna listen, he didn't. I'm glad I had the long line on because it allowed me to guarantee success while I'm working through the training process, and I now know that he is in a situation where he can't have full reliability in this environment. I'm gonna have to stay here and keep working. You can have long lines like this where they're really fancy training biophane long lines. They're nice, they're expensive. With my personal dogs and puppies, when I'm going through this process, I just buy a big reel of paracord. I tie it around their collar, nice firm knot. They drag it around behind them, something like this. The dog often knows that they're attached to it. It doesn't have to cost you a fortune, but what it does is it sets you up for success. And I can't say how important it is to not set your dog up to fail. And if you have failed reps of asking your dog to do something and they don't, it might not be a big deal while you're training, or it might not have led to a big problem, but what it has led to is that your dog having that idea that they can pick and choose when they listen to you. The relationship that you want with your dog is that they must always listen. Now, we have a responsibility to make sure they understand what it is that we do want. So when it comes to recall, you actually have to teach them recall, and you have to teach it effectively, not just presume they know it, but know that they know it. But once they do, it's then important that you have a relationship with your dog that they understand if you ask them to do something, they must do it. Rather than growing up having failed rep after failed rep after failed rep, and in their brains, they're like, sometimes I listen, if I don't want to listen, no, I just don't listen. That is a recipe for a badly behaved dog, that is a recipe for disaster, and you need to avoid that at all costs. With recall, the fix is simple, just use a long line. Now guys, being able to come into the great outdoors and give your dogs this kind of freedom, and where they kind of just want to be around you anyway, is definitely doable. But if you need more help on how to do it, that's exactly why I created my recall course. And the great thing about that course is it's included in my Perfect Canine Companion bundle. And that bundle has helped thousands of people be able to take their dog from displaying whatever problem behaviors they're struggling with, including recall, but also crate training, loose lead walking, aggression type problems, reactivity type problems, obedience type problems, you name it, it's all covered in that course, and take their dog through to Perfect Canine Companion. And to thank you for supporting the channel, there's even a special discount just for you when you click on the link in the description box below. So if you want to make sure that you can have perfect control over your dogs no matter where you go, that course is going to absolutely be what you're looking for. Again, it will be listed in the description box below. Now, another mistake that we have to talk about, guys, which might be a slightly harsh reality, it might not be a topic that people want to discuss, but you have to understand that breed does make a massive difference when it comes to recall. Now, I'm right here with my German Shepherd, Reggie, and one of his favourite things is me. That's what he loves to do. He loves to please me, he likes to be around me, he's going to constantly come and check in and out with me. So teaching him recall is going to be fairly easy. However, if I had a working line Cocker Spaniel whose favourite thing is to sniff out birds and flush them out of game cover, it's going to be a lot harder to teach that dog recall. We call that competing motivators. And in the game of recall, you want to make yourself as motivating as possible and to be more motivating to your dog than anything else that they might encounter. The reality is that breed goes a long way to start off that scale of motivation. And if your dog's breed is the type of breed that is incredibly handler focused, wants to please their owner and wants to be around their owner, that scale of motivation is going to be a lot easier than a breed that the opposite is true for. So it doesn't excuse bad training, all dogs need to be trained, but I do believe it's important for your happiness with your dog to have realistic expectations of what can be achieved with your dog based on your starting point with them, which is determined in a huge part by the breed that your dog is. And last but not least, guys, a mistake that I want to talk about that I don't really see anybody talking about, but I think it's so important, is that your dog doesn't need off-lead freedom, and you can do way more damage giving them off-lead freedom when they're not ready for it than not giving them any off-lead freedom in public places in the first place. Giving your dog off-lead freedom when they're not ready for it can be incredibly dangerous. It can end up in your dogs ending up in fights. It can end up with your dog getting run over. It can end up with your dog running to somebody that doesn't want a dog running to them. And especially if when they get there, they jump or do anything silly, can end you up in legal trouble. None of those things are worth the risk. And there isn't even a reward that makes the risk even worth considering. You can exercise your dog plenty, keeping them on a lead. You can use your long lines to make sure that you can have a good level of freedom, a good level of space for your dog to be able to run whilst maintaining complete control. You can utilize private enclosed fields to give them complete off-lead freedom. You can use games like retrieval work in your garden or flirt pole work, or a variety of different things to help drain your dog's energy. It is not worth taking the risk when the reward isn't that amazing in the first place. It is a myth that your dog has to have off-lead freedom. And again, as somebody who works with dogs when things go terribly wrong with dogs, I can promise you it is not worth the risk. So hopefully in that video, guys, we've helped you understand what mistakes you might have been making or what mistakes you definitely need to avoid. Now remember, if you need more help, make sure you check out my Perfect Canine Companion course. There'll be a link in the description box below, and I guarantee that will help you be able to come out into the great outdoors with your dogs and be able to enjoy time with them off lead without the worry, without the fear, without the stress. Again, there's a link in the description box below, and we can't wait to see you there.